Welcome back to another episode of Adaptive Men with us. A little change of pace. I got my good buddy here, Mike Fucci, who is a lot of things: chiropractor, functional medicine doctor, and we're taking a little bit of change of direction for anybody who does follow me. All 60 plus subscribers, I appreciate you. We're two of us are looking to start educating and working with men in particular about the importance of trying to detox the body and the mind, both simultaneously, and how much they interact with each other. So we'll be seeing a lot more of Mike in the future. It's exciting. Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Really excited to be here. Excited to share the power of both the mental aspect of things and then hopefully add in the structural and biochemical aspect. And I think that we can create a really well-rounded approach.
So yeah, I've told a lot of people in person this, but I don't know if I'm just trying to spread the word like crazy. I had a lot of fatigue issues. I'm at a point now with my own mental health journey where I'm confident I could probably hold my own with like one of Tony Robbins' like subordinates, maybe not Tony himself, but like really high up there in terms of just awareness, loving myself, knowing what important my routines are, respecting my body, respecting my mind, setting goals, dealing with impulses, childhood traumas, and all that fun stuff. Kind of a lot past a lot of this stuff, but I still had a lot of problems with fatigue. My energy was kind of crap. I was still having trouble falling asleep. Impulse control was still stronger than it should have been, despite understanding it well. And then you reached out to me one day and you were like, hey, let's do some testing. And I was like, fuck it, let's go for it. Hell yeah. And you found one of my favorite things I've been telling people is I had the testosterone of a 25-year-old and the estrogen of a postmenopausal woman.
More aggressive than I think, but
that was hysterical to relate. But that we were just talking about this earlier about how much like these kind of symptoms wouldn't pop up on normal lab testing on normal stuff, or they would pop up, but they wouldn't think about the issue of the root causes. And so what you suggested to me, amongst the other things that I had, other issues that I had, was I had some liver congestion, which is a fancy way of saying my liver wasn't breaking. I was producing the hormones, I wasn't breaking them down fast enough. So you had me do a 3-week liver detox, which just involved a disgusting protein shake and way too many pills. And I've never felt so effing good in my entire life. Like, it's been surreal every day that my energy is so, it's high, but it's also smooth and consistent. It's not fluctuating. It's not random. I'm not yawning. I'm not having like moments of feeling amazing and then slightly need to take like a nap later on. I used to have to take naps midday. I used to have a hard time sleeping. He's just like thought I couldn't stay focused on things. I need to take breaks very frequently to just like play video games and watch YouTube just to calm myself down from just random anxieties I couldn't explain. And they literally were gone within 3 weeks. Like, just fucking, it still blows my fucking mind how that was the last piece of the puzzle. But then we got into talking and we realized how much there are probably problems for men and women, but in this case, we're focusing on men, that are stemming from physiological issues and from psychological issues. So if it's like, if you hate yourself and you eat junk food and you start cleaning up your diet, but you still hate yourself, it's not going to change how much you hate yourself. But if you love yourself, but you eat junk food and whatever it may be, it's like fixing one doesn't always fix the other, but addressing both at the same time. Because oftentimes if you've got bad behaviors and habits and whatnot from past behaviors, that it's, even if you clean up your diet, you're going to fall back into past behavior again. Or if you clean up your mind, but in my case, you clean up your mind, but you still physiologically are having trouble digesting, metabolizing things, you're going to feel like crap. And then the answer then becomes, well, what if we just combined both of them together? And ask the question, like, is this a psychological problem, a physiological problem, or is it both? And if it's both, can we clean up both at the same time?
I think what's interesting is, we've both kind of been on similar but parallel journeys and how we've been going about things. And, you approached everything from the mental aspect first, the mental emotional. I always feel like is the right word. The mental emotional aspect first, and then I kind of went through the functional medicine aspect first. Then we kind of flip flopped, where I started going through the Tony Robbins team side of stuff, and I started looking at that from that spiritual, mental emotional side, and then you flip flopped and went on the back end. And when we both had that, oh, we connected the dots of both of these together, we're like, holy shit, we feel amazing. Holy shit, I'm not depressed anymore. Why don't because you're sitting here I'm not feeling great today. Well, am I not feeling great today because there's a biochemical problem today, or do I actually have something? But when you have both of those, you can kind of evaluate. And you're like, okay, well, I feel depressed, but I have nothing to be depressed about. Okay, so then maybe it's mental emotional, biochemical, and it's I feel great today. but I'm also like, oh, but that thing that happened today made me sad. It's like, okay, well now I can work through that, because you're focusing on, like, I think we get, and this is I think what ends up happening for people who get stuck on like Xanax or any type of SSRIs, is like they feel depressed, but they don't know why. So then they go to therapy, and then the therapy doesn't work, and then the therapist runs out of options, and they're like, I think you just need to go on some sort of medication. And I think it's because they're missing that biochemical approach, where they're like, 80% of the serotonin is produced in the gut, right? And whether that's the exact number or a roundabout number, it's about 80%. So when we understand that 80% of the thing that makes us feel happy and the thing that makes us feel fulfilled and joy is produced in the gut, we can't ignore the fact that food and this biochemical reaction is really a component. And then on top of that, that same chemical serotonin that makes you feel really good and makes you feel like satisfied, when it stays too long, you start feeling aggressive and angry. And it's like there's this interesting clearing effect too that needs to occur. So there's a book by Ben Lynch called Dirty Genes that really breaks down the processes of how, like, our body is set up to build things and then break things down, build things and then break things down. And if there's ever an issue in either of those cycles, because that's everything's catabolism and anabolism, right? Breaking it down, building it up, breaking it down, building it up. And as long as you have that cycle working in check, you're fine. When your cycle goes out of check, then there's a problem. Because if you're not making enough serotonin, you're going to be depressed all the time. If you're making too much serotonin and holding on to it, you're going to be angry and aggressive all the time and not know why. And that's where, like, no matter how much work you do on it, and you're like, I understand why I'm angry, but I'm still fucking angry. It's like that sometimes we just need to get that clearing out. But then you can do the right things in the body. And then if you don't have that ability to process through the traumas that you've experienced, you'll always hold on to those and they'll always influence your actions. So then it becomes this cascade. Is it your actions causing the biochemical? Is the biochemical causing your actions? And it's like, why even ask? Like, let's just hit both.
Yeah. It was crazy that years ago, I actually went for testosterone testing. I know like TRT therapy is like a huge thing nowadays. Guys are just doing. But I went for testosterone testing thing because I had a buddy of mine who did it, who had a lot of success with it. And I was like, maybe this will help because I was like 29, 30-ish maybe. It was like just before COVID hit. And so it was like 5-6 years ago. And I was feeling fatigued. I was feeling tired. And this is crazy, and not to be like a creep, but like if I noticed a really attractive woman, I wasn't having the kind of reaction I feel like I should have just had involuntarily. Like most guys will see an attractive woman and go like, damn, she's hot. And then just keep walking. It wasn't happening. And I was like, what the F? Like this, like I know I'm not going to harass her, but just like I should be able to appreciate it. And it just wasn't happening. And I was like, I think my testosterone's super low. Maybe this is the issue. I heard testosterone is associated with, being horny and being all that stuff. So maybe that's the problem. My buddy has success with it, so I'll try it out too. And so I went and got tested. They said, actually, your testosterone's really high. You're fine. And I'm just like, I'm not fine though. I still feel like crap and I have no libido, even though apparently my testosterone's at the roof. And I said, like, yeah, you don't need replacement therapy. You're fine. Your testosterone's pretty high. And also your cholesterol's high because you eat a lot of red meat, but it's a whole other story. But that was just funny. It was funny that I'm looking back on that, thinking about when I did the testing with you and said, like, no, your testosterone's high because you're not breaking it down. And the reason you feel like crap is because you're not breaking it down because your liver's not working. Let's focus on your liver. And then we cleared up the liver and oh my effing God, like I feel like every day I just wake up with a natural cup of coffee, just like injected into my ass. Whereas I would think it was like, as I said with you the other week, a few weeks ago, it was like, it's like a syringe full of jet fuel just jammed into my ass every morning. But I just feel just clean, good energy. And it's just amazing to think like, oh, your testosterone's fine. Like, well, clearly something else is still not working. Like, well, go see somebody else, and then like you said, the answer is just like, you're not breaking it down. That was interesting to talk about with some guys when they talk about like, maybe my testosterone's lowering. And how when I talk to guys about this, it's like, well, there's production, there's uptake, and then there's metabolism. There's there's 3 parts of the cycle you could be looking at where the actual problem is different for every single guy. That's is it going to lower as you get older? Yes. But like to the degree that you feel sluggish and you need to just then the cycle begins. I need caffeine every day. Caffeine wears out my adrenals and my tolerance builds up and it's not working as well anymore. And then I have to just start like doing different things, and then I'm getting stressed out because I'm still not able to calm down because I can't sleep. My sleep is still fucking me up, which is fucking my cortisol, which is screwing with other things. And then all of a sudden I'm bitter, angry mood all the time. My wife doesn't want to talk to me because I'm always constantly pissed off, and we end up disconnecting. And then suddenly, my favorite was when I hear like the divorce came out of nowhere. Like, no, it didn't. No, it didn't. It's been building for like years. It's been building for, like, there have been signs everywhere that you've been either ignoring voluntarily or involuntarily. And so this ties back to like the psychological aspect. Just like if you know you shouldn't feel like crap, what's the problem? Yeah.
I have 2 stories that I think are really, really applicable. One's super applicable. So I had a patient who, unfortunately, recently passed away from cancer. I ended up catching the cancer too late in her stage, just because I caught it right when she started seeing me. But she was seeing another practitioner for 2 years, and they were working on all the symptoms that she was experiencing because she herself avoided the diagnosis. And, she's like, for us, it's like, oh, it came out of nowhere. And it's like, it didn't come out of nowhere. You were dealing with this for 3-4 years. It was the smoking history for 20 years. It was all those things that ended up leading to the cancer that we ignore. But there's a good story, and it's not my story. It's a story from one of my mentors, Jimmy Scaringi. And he's a big player in the functional medicine space. He is he works teaching programs for like Cellcore. And one of the stories he talks about a lot is that in his 20s, he didn't end up going to college. He ended up becoming a personal trainer, and during that personal trainer rabbit hole, he ended up becoming really into exercise, got into steroids. And then when he got into steroids, he started like and this is, I think, something that people need to get out of their head, is that when you don't like the guys who are like competing at the Mr. Olympia and all the different type of bodybuilding competitions, they don't necessarily feel great. They look awesome. They look amazing. We want to look like
terrible.
that.
Feel horrible.
But they feel awful all the time. All of their joints hurt. All their muscles hurt. They literally feel like their muscles are going to explode. They feel they have no energy, no libido. Their testicles are shrinking. It's absolutely terrible. And he's like, I felt miserable doing, he's like, I was competing and winning. He's like, and people like envied how I looked. He's like, but I felt miserable on the inside. So he ended up cutting out the steroids and all the testosterone. And what ended up happening was his body went through male menopause because his body stopped producing testosterone. Because when you get the way hormones work is they have a negative feedback loop. So when you have all this testosterone in the body, there are two main sources of testosterone in the body for males. It's the adrenal glands and it's the testes. So when one doesn't work, the other picks back up. But the other problem is, and that people don't realize, one of the reasons why men typically have low fatigue, low libido is because the adrenal glands are taxed. Because they're workaholics, they're stressed out all the time, so they end up producing too much cortisol. Once they produce too much cortisol, it creates that negative feedback loop, and then their body eventually ends up getting burnt out. And that's where you hear the term burnt out adrenals, which is not really a real thing, but the adrenals do start to like hypofunction. And then you get less testosterone, you get less libido, you get less energy, and it's a huge issue all around. So for him, he ended up having to go down the functional medicine rabbit hole because he was like, I was so miserable for 3 months post cutting off all the testosterone therapy. And like, I want people who are considering testosterone therapy to listen to that story, because he did that. I've worked with clients who have testosterone therapy, and all of them have like completely fucked up hormones. Like they end up usually this is not always true, but a lot of them lose their hair because a lot of the testosterone gets converted to DHT. And then what ends up happening is that they also get a lot of estrogen, and that estrogen is what makes them feel a little crazy. They feel like all these like different types of mood swings, and they feel like low libido, and they're like, but my testosterone is like on a scale of like it's 5 times higher than what it should be. And then on top of that, most doctors only measure blood. So when you talk about like the doctor came back and they're like, your testosterone's high, you should feel amazing, they don't always necessarily look at sex hormone binding globulin. Sex hormone binding globulin is what will cause testosterone to be free testosterone. Bound testosterone by sex hormone binding globulin does nothing for you. It's not free. The free testosterone is what we need to look at. And then some doctors don't even test for free testosterone. If they're a decent doctor, they'll run all the tests. But maybe they didn't look at estrogen. They didn't look at DHT. I will even say, like, my test doesn't look at DHT, which is a huge issue because and it's more of a New York issue, because there's a company called Diagnostics which has I consider the perfect cortisol and hormone panel, because it tests all the stuff mine does, but it also has a extra saliva tube for if you wake up in the middle of the night, because it helps us identify if you have cortisol spikes in the middle of the night that's causing you to wake up. And it also tests for DHT. But when you analyze the different metabolites, so most people check the blood. The blood is it's one, not available testosterone. Two, it also doesn't even make sure the testosterone makes it into the body. When we check salivary testosterone, we're checking all the testosterone that's making it into the tissue. And then you can check urinary testosterone, and you're checking down the breakdown of the testosterone. But no doctors are checking this because they're not going that far.
It's crazy to think that there's like saliva testosterone and urine testosterone and bound testosterone and like the different. I thought it was all the same. But what's interesting, even deeper than this, and we'll probably get this into a future episode, how these like the phrasing I like to put it, this is like your hormones are your reality in a way. Your perception of reality is very much influenced by your biochemical state. And then if you take on that particular perception of reality for a long enough time, it gets locked into a behavior loop in your brain and your mind and your subconscious. And so I talk about it with guys who are like, maybe it's like, I take a guy and he's like, I'm just terrible at like, talking to girls and I can't get a relationship. I was like, oh, all right. Let's do some blood work and let's also do some other stuff. You do some blood work and your testosterone's low. It's like, cool. All right. Would giving you more testosterone make you better talking to girls? Probably not. Like you'd probably still be terrible at it because you've spent most of your life not knowing how to do it. Now you're confident to try, but you still don't know exactly what's going wrong. And you've got a particular nervous system and subconscious behaviors and feedback loop in terms of your own people pleasing and your ability to handle rejection that has not been accounted for, that you're going to hit a new problem. When you go out there and go, I'm ready to talk. And you talk to a girl and she says, no, thank you. And you just go, oh God, I'm feeling crap now. And the testosterone didn't work. And it's like, well, that was part one. Part two, or maybe reverse, is to figure out like what's going on up here. Why are you like still like what problems you have with rejection and handling feedback and getting criticism and things like that. And that ties back into childhood behavior and how much your nervous system is wired and how the two of these things will just loop into each other. That like even if I was to jack you up with more testosterone, it wouldn't change the fact that you still have a behavior pattern in a certain way in certain people. But if you're living in the state of mind for long enough, eventually it becomes your reality. You're convinced like this is just how it'll always be. Then you get incels and you get red pill movement and you get MGTOW and you get things like that. And you get this bifurcation amongst men who are like, oh, I'm willing to figure out what needs to be done to get the outcomes I want. And then you get the men who are basically convinced like there is no way to change this because this is the way it's always been. Women too, same thing. Like women, you see this story about women who lose their libido in like their 40s and 50s. And they're just like, it must be because I don't love them anymore. It's like, no, you're in menopause. Like nobody even told you what the fuck that was. And it turns out there's ways to actually work with this to like naturally give you some herbal supplementation to manage it better, along with open communication skills within the relationship that you didn't get growing up as kids to bring into the marriage and then bring back to like what it needs to be sparked into the relationship again. So you're tackling from both sides, but people will just say like, that's just how it is.
Yeah. But just like how like we use licorice root to preserve the conversion of cortisol. So when cortisol goes to cortisone and then it gets excreted, if we delay that, it works. That's the same thing we do for menopause because they have the drop in estrogen. So if we just delay the breakdown of estrogen, it works the same way. And I forget the exact supplement off the top of my head, but I think it might be Taste Tree or Vitex or something like that. But there's definitely a good supplement that does that.
So 2 quick things to ask you before we wrap things up here. We'll do more in future episodes. One, everyone associates cortisol being bad. Tell me why it's not.
So I'm glad you didn't ask both questions at the same time because I would have gotten the second one. Power of having a 2-month-old and then your wife feeling sick in the morning too is ruins your sometimes your ability to cognitive. If I wasn't all 100% there, I don't know how I'd get anything done. Thank God for functional medicine, right? But
thank God.
So to answer the question, cortisol is like I'm going to reverse engineer the question. So why would someone go to the doctor to get a cortisone injection? Because it is the best anti-inflammatory substance in the entire body. Cortisol is literally anti-inflammation. When people who feel chronic fatigue syndrome, they feel tired all the time, they hurt all the time, they don't understand why they like feel depressed and anxious, cortisol is the thing that will literally like if you get a bolus of cortisol first thing in the morning like you're supposed to, you wake up feeling energized because cortisol is pure energy. Then 2, what ends up happening is the cortisol is anti-inflammatory, so it makes all the joints and everything feel great, and that's why when you have that same level of energy, you actually feel like you're moving better and you don't notice as much pain. So for people, they should have what's called a daily cortisol pattern that matches their circadian rhythm. So in the morning, cortisol should be high, and it looks like a lazy boy chair. Lazy boy chair. As it dips down towards noon, it picks up again for that afternoon slump, which is where everybody usually has their cortisol drop, and that's why everybody needs that cup of coffee. And then it goes right back down when time for bed. The cortisol curve, like if I could measure one thing on someone, if you had to like cut my hands, like I don't know how you'd cut my hands. If you had to tie my hands, and say like I could only order one thing, it'd be the cortisol curve, because it tells me exactly how stressed out the body is. If the cortisol curve is really high, which I've almost never seen on anyone, it would mean that you're actively fighting something. But I tend to deal with chronic issues because by the nature of what I do, I get people after they've tried all their options. So I always see the cortisol curve either being dysregulated, where it's really high at night and they can't go to bed, and it's really low in the morning and they can't get up, or it's completely flattened. And those are the two extremes, and people usually fall between those two extremes. And the ability for them to have that good cortisol pattern means they have good energy throughout the day. They don't need coffee. They don't need to take anti-inflammatory medications. They don't feel pain when they move. And you go on through those different types of cycles. So the cortisol is, if we can get the cortisol working correctly, it's perfect. The problem is when cortisol is too high, it can wreak havoc on the rest of the body because it runs processes too fast. It wears down vessels. It wears down a bunch of different things. And then what ends up happening is then the cortisol will plateau and drop. And then you feel that fatigue, low energy, everything hurts all the time. So if we can find like both that stress management, so that way you're not running on cortisol all the time. Actually, the big thing is glucose management, because if your body is constantly trying to offset anytime your blood sugar dips below a certain threshold, I can't remember what the threshold is, the body utilizes cortisol to bring that glucose blood sugar back up. And that's when you get those like wired but tired, or those anxious energy feelings. It's usually a blood sugar correlation issue. So the two things to fix a cortisol curve without doing additional supplementation for the adrenal glands or the HPA axis is always stress management and blood sugar regulation, aside from anything weird like a parasite.
Yeah, well then that ties into question number 2, which is there's going to be people that are going to hear this content and be like, oh, so what you're saying is I just need to get licorice root and all my problems are solved. Oh, what you're saying is if I could just fix my testosterone, then all my problems are solved. And even as it ties into psychological health, why is that not always the answer? Like, why is it not just one thing that needs to be fixed?
So this kind of goes back into like a little bit of my history as a chiropractor, when I was like a sports rehab chiropractor full time and not doing a lot of the functional medicine stuff. My first understanding of when I looked at somebody was, when there's a joint problem, there's a joint problem. And if it's a neck problem, it's a subluxation. And it's like, well, that's not always the case. And as you start to learn, you start to realize like we have all these different names for issues that all have the same underlying problem. So when you go and you can name like 15 different, 20 different neck conditions. There's all these different fancy words that our doctors are trained to use, because we've become what's called it's a pathoanatomical model, where there's a problem with a specific thing. So people originally want to go, right? It's the Western model. So people want to go, I'm tired, therefore I need energy, therefore what can I energize with? If we go traditional medicine, it's probably caffeine. If we go herbal medicine, it's licorice root. But then we have to go one step further and ask, why are we tired? Like that's the question. The question I'm always asking is what's the why behind the why? Because if we can get to the root cause, and there's not always one root cause. Sometimes there's multiple. And prior to the call, we actually talked about this thing called terrain theory, where our body is a terrain. The things that grow on it, the things that grow in it, the things that the body processes, it's all due to a variety of factors. So from a mental standpoint with us, everything you put into your brain is stuff that's changing your brain chemistry. That's why affirmations do work, because you're saying the same thing over and over and over again. Eventually you may believe it. Eventually, you may not believe it. If you know you're full of shit, you probably won't believe it. But eventually, your body will at least remember the phrases. The body will remember the phrase really well. So as we start going into this, like, why can't you just take licorice root? Because it's masking the problem, and we're just now using a more natural remedy with the same, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess traditional Western style treatment. So what we really need to do is we need to figure out, okay, if the adrenal glands are there, I want you to feel energy. I'm using licorice root to help you feel better, but I also have to fix the underlying blood sugar, liver regulation. And then the same thing goes, like when I said, like there's certain, like when we check for like Postural Restoration Institute is a technique their techniques I use a lot in my office, because they have a good understanding of why everyone has problems. Because I know that a low back pain problem, which is a pelvis problem, which is a SI joint problem, which is a hip problem, which is a rib cage problem, they're all the same thing. They just manifest differently depending on how our body compensates for those original changes and those original movement patterns. Same thing goes to the body. The body only has so many ways of dealing with things. If the body eliminates well, if the body detoxifies well, if the body has energy, if the body has the ability to digest and break down food, if the body has the ability to then make energy with all the stuff it broke down, and all of that works fine, you don't have disease, right? And that's the truth. And then the same thing goes for the men's coaching side of things. But
yeah, I remember seeing this post on Facebook. It was somebody I went to school with years ago who was a heavy set guy. It was one of those like random posts that was like, you don't need some magical, concoction or formula to detox. You have a liver for a reason. And also, this is a guy that eats like McDonald's every other week and like drinks Starbucks every day. And I'm like, I don't think your liver was designed to keep up with that. We didn't evolve with Starbucks. We didn't evolve with McDonald's. And so, yeah, but the other side of that coin being the mental aspect, that it's like, why is your liver jacked up? Because you eat a lot of junk food. Cool. We stop eating junk food. I can't. Why not? Because I have anxiety and it calms me down. Why do you have anxiety? I hate my job and my wife stresses me out. Okay, well, what's wrong with your job? Like, I don't know how to say no to my boss because he's a tyrant and my wife is stressed out, that I'm stressed out, or stresses her out. And then it causes, us to get into fights a lot. So then I build this internal pattern of being afraid to like even go home. So I get stressed when I'm driving home from work, thinking about the fight that's going to happen between me and my wife, and I don't know how to deal with it. So therefore I just, lock myself in the basement, play Call of Duty, eat junk food, and then repeat the whole cycle the next day. And it's like, all right, cool. No amount of licorice root is going to teach you how to put up boundaries.
No amount of functional medicine can solve that.
Functional medicine can. So they're both interlocking problems. Then they're entwining in a way. Because like you're eating junk food to calm down an anxiety. It's being caused by something in your environment you don't know how to deal with. It's not physiological, pharmacological in nature. It's psychological in nature. I don't know how to say no. Why? Because I had a difficult time saying no in my childhood and I didn't know how to put up boundaries. Okay. How are you compensating? By eating junk food to calm down the stress that happens when I want to tell someone to fuck off, but I can't. All right. We're going to teach you how to tell them how to fuck off. That's what you need to do right now. And then we're also going to teach you how to say no to junk food.
Right. Because for anyone who's ever dealing with sugar cravings, right? Gymnema will immediately cut out sugar cravings.
What is that?
It's a herb.
Gotcha.
So gymnema, and there's another one called fenugreek. What they do is they actually, I forget the exact mechanism of action, but it suppresses the hormone or the neurotransmitter that's involved with the sugar addiction. And it I can't remember the exact mechanism of action, but I've used it enough where I've seen it work time and time again. The problem is you can't mask the problem for why you wanted the sugar to begin with. Is it because once you come off of it, you're allowing you're stressed again, and you're like, actually, I want sugar again, and then that becomes that whole cycle because sugar is addictive.
Yeah.
So you can't cut sugar once. You have to cut, you know what I mean? Like, you have to get to the cycle, and you're hitting a nail on the head.
Yeah. Man, it's funny because as soon as you said like fenugreek and gymnema, I'm like, so can I go get the supplement and then it'll solve all my problems?
No, you can't, because it's just masking the symptom. It might be transitory. It's the support, because if we can take the gymnema on the aspect of the sugar cravings, because it's like, let's say the cravings are the true problem, and you're just like, I need to get over this hump. Gymnema, great. But then you go to work was stressful, your wife says she hates you, and then you come home late because you're avoiding that conversation, and then she's mad more, and now you're like, fuck, the only thing that'll solve this is a Dr Pepper 2-liter.
And then you're,
right?
then you're
Like,
basically teaching yourself, when you get stressed, go reach for a Dr Pepper. That is
right,
a
and we need to
behavior
break
loop
that.
that gets wired into your brain.
And you
To break that
you
loop, and
can't
you also have to figure out what the underlying is. Yeah.
out functional medicine behavior loops. You can't. No, like, and it's even
Yeah,
just for
sometimes
me. Like, if I run over, like, if I do 8, like, I've tracked this out, because you know me and I like my numbers. If I work with clients for 4 hours in a day, no problem. If I work with clients for like over 7 hours in one day, immediately my brain's like, I hit stress. I want carbs. I want sugar. I want something. I want a cheeseburger. And I'm like, at 4 hours, I wanted like a steak and vegetables. And now at, 7 hours, I want a cheeseburger and fries. Okay, so there's a threshold issue here that we're crossing that my body's like not able to handle.
Yeah,
we could
I think it's
potentially
part of
change the
interesting
behavior loop. We could change, there's so many factors to change. But I think that's more the hope for people, is that we can change these things.
I could talk with this for hours. I don't know how much time you have to go before we have to dip out if you need to get going.
I'm good for a few more minutes. If there's anything else you wanted to talk about, if you wanted to wrap up for this episode, if you want to talk about it more in the next episode.
No, there's just so many stories. I have so many stories in my life, and I would love to, if I can like put it out on like a piece of paper on like one thing. Because these like, I think you had the same thing, like puzzle piece moments of your life where like something weird happened and you're like, that was weird that happened in that way, but I'm gonna go move on with my life now. And then like years later, you're like, oh, that was a puzzle piece for this. It goes here, and then finally, both of us are gonna have this point where it's like, oh, I think I have the whole picture filled out now, which is the picture of what do I want my life to be? Where are the roadblocks? Where are the guardrails? What are the behavior loops? How do I break behavior loops? What kind of foods do I need? What kind of diet do I need? Interestingly, I think people make a mistake nowadays of thinking like, what's the new supplement I need now? Like if they're working with a functional medicine doctor or a men's coach, both of our goals are to be like, we should be able to fix you so you never need this again. You should be done. Or like only come back when a real problem or a different problem arises. But ideally, it's like, we're not here to try to hook you into a consistent, we'll see you every other week and change your medication model. It's like, we're here to like give you the tools to help you reset your body physiologically and give you the tools by cleaning out your psychology where we can, to then have more control over the outcomes you want in life without needing our help. And I know even with you, with the liver detox that I did with you, it was a crap load of pills and a lot of nasty ass tasting protein. But then when it was done, it was done. And the other end of that thing was that I did a lot of large elimination diet, and I do like a disgusting amount of red meat nowadays and bacon and fat, like protein and fats, carnivore kind of diet. And I eliminated a lot of foods that I thought were healthy for me. It turns out like I actually have a bit of an intolerance to strawberries. I found out recently. Certain greens do not mix well with me very well. And like, instead of saying, oh, you need to add this food into your diet, we just said like 2-3 weeks for my particular problem, because it's different for everybody, like however long it's going to be, and then like cut out everything, just minimize, and then add slowly and see how you feel. But it's not like, here's the pill, here's the thing, here's the new routine you need to add. It's like, no, it's an elimination thing. It's like eliminate bad thoughts, eliminate old toxic behaviors, eliminate the problems that are happening physiologically, balance your hormones. Like I tell people, this is my joke with people, I tell people, it's like every day when I wake up nowadays, like I get up, make my bed, drink some water, cook some food, usually like a couple of bacon. Today I had steak instead of bacon. Like brush my teeth, go get some sunlight, check my email, and then I start thinking. I don't start thinking before like I've done all the things that need to get done for me physiologically and psychologically to not be in a shitty mood. If you like, you wake up and you're just not really feeling that good, you're like, I got to start thinking about my day. And your day is going to look like shit in your head. But if you get sunlight in your eyes and on your skin, and you get, drinking water because you're dehydrated from not sleeping, you get a little food in your system, get some blood pumping, go for a 5-minute walk, whatever it may be. And then you start, your thoughts are all going to be positive because you're not fighting with your biology. You're not arguing with your biology or your psychology. You're saying like, what do I need to be in a good mood right now that I can externally influence to make myself feel better internally? That's a bit of a rant, but yeah.
No, but I think it's pretty spot on.
Awesome. Well, there's a million more topics I'd love to cover on, but we'll have to do this for future episodes. But I'm looking forward to more talks with you. We're going to be doing a lot more of this in the future. Hopefully, we'll have more updates on this program we're building out, trying to work with men in a 3 to 6 month time frame with combining the coaching and funk medicine into one shot. Any last thoughts you want to touch on before we wrap up?
No, we're just trying to help people poop better, think better, and have more energy.
We're gonna put that on a t-shirt.
Think better, poop better, have
think
more
better,
energy.
shoot ATP out of your ass.
Listen, it's got to come out of somewhere.
Awesome. All right, we'll catch up soon. Thank you so much for your time today, man.
Thank you.